So, unless you've had your heads buried in the sand for the past few months or so, Russia really don't like gay people. And they are taking it out in them by saying that if you are a Russian or a foreigner who is in the country and propagates homosexuality as a normal and okay thing to do, then you are not allowed to be there, basically, and you get chucked in prison, and there's an awful lot of homophobic violence happening in Russia, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. Now, the big thing is, normally we wouldn't really care about this kind of thing because Russia's a bit dodgy anyway, but we care about this because Russia is going to be hosting next year's Olympics, the Winter Olympics in Sochi, and so there's been a lot of concern about whether any gay athletes, because let's be honest, there's quite a lot of gay ice skaters out there, whether they are going to be affected by this law. And so there has been a call by the international LGBT community for there to be a massive ban. Isn't that right, Jimmy?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Ban isn't the right word, though, is it?
Correct.
The right word is boycott.
Ban. The gay mafia have put out the word.
The gay mafia being Stephen Fry, obviously.
Stephen Fry, yeah.
So on this stance, this is our debate video, by the way. And so on this stance, I'm going to be anti-boycott, which is actually the view that I take, and Jimmy is going to half-assedly try and argue the other point, despite the fact that he actually feels the opposite way. But you know what? We like to have balanced opinions on this. So Jimmy, why don't you start us off? Why should we boycott the Sochi Olympics in 2014?
Oh dear. I really should have prepared harder. But, well, in general, the West is supposed to be in favour of gay rights. I know there's certain Australian Prime Ministers that don't agree with that point of view. Mm-hmm. But in general, we feel that gay rights, I should say LGBT rights, are things that should be promoted. And we talk a lot about sort of intervention, about encouraging, other countries, particularly ones that don't have, large militaries, to sort of progress forward. And then when it comes to a country that can kind of stick up for itself, we pussyfoot around a lot more. And if we boycotted the Olympics, it would send out a pretty strong message that we're no longer willing to tolerate nations that don't support human rights, I suppose.
Right, okay. So, have you seen the message that's been posted by the Russian LGBT network? That actually says that they would prefer it if athletes and countries didn't boycott the games because they would rather the international community stand with Russians in Sochi and make a stand, and probably end up putting themselves not in danger, but they will have the chance of being put in jail.
So wait, this is the Russian
LGBT Union, or that's what they're called, I think.
So wait, are we saying that they're going to be in more danger if we send our Olympic teams, or they're going to be in less danger if we send our Olympic teams?
Well, because we've got Claire Balding, she's going to be flying the rainbow flag, I'm sure. And athletes love flags, right? So they're going to be, if there isn't a boycott, there is definitely going to be pushback from athletes and journalists. That's inevitable.
I mean, do you think it's going to be effective, though? I mean, if the Olympic teams and the journalists go over, do you think it's going to have an impact on the way Russia perceives homosexuals and, transsexuals?
We'll be talking about it. It won't just be a black hole in the news where, because there is no American team and British team there, I think we need to have athletes there and delegations there so that the world's focus so that the world is focused on Sochi, and so that these LGBT and these abuses of LGBT rights can be talked about frankly, in the international community. Don't you think that that's a better thing than just saying, we're not going to go?
I mean, do you think that the Russian public, because in a way this whole argument is about the Russian public's perception of homosexuality, it's not so much about our own. Do you think that they're that likely to watch the BBC and Fox News and whatever, or do you think they'll watch the Olympics through their own TV stations?
See, the thing is also, I don't think that we are going to... I don't think this is a fight that the international community necessarily should be wading into. I think that these kinds of things should be organised and they should be affronted internally. I think that this is a fight for the LGBT Russians to make, rather than us making a big hoo-ha outside of the country. And to be completely honest, we're not going to do anything positive for the LGBT community in Russia without, by not going to the games. That's not going to bring about anything positive, I don't think.
So do you think that there will be a positive effect if we go to the games then?
Yes, I think there will be, because it will mean that that people who want to be active against the Russian regime, who are from the international community, can do so. They can make a big song and dance about it, fly their rainbow flags, and then the media will have no choice but to cover these issues. Whether or not that is the Russian community or the international community.
No choice. Do you really think that it's impossible that, particularly the Russian media, do you really think it's impossible that Russia today, won't gloss over these events?
The internet,
or at least try to minimise the way, the...
Oh no, of course, but something is better than nothing, though. Don't you think that there's going to be, rather than us just being like, nah, we're not going to go, that I think is going to give the Russians... No, hold on. That I think is going to give the Russians affirmation that these foreigners don't understand us. So they've decided to turn their back on this event. I don't think that that's going to do us any favours. If we end up going there, trying our best to create a dialogue, because obviously these are things that in the West, these are issues that that certain members of our communities feel strongly about. I think that we're going to do more good being in the fray of that kind of situation rather than just turning our backs on it.
It seems that it would be it seems possible that it would be a stronger message if we boycotted. I don't know if there's certainly not been, a widespread boycott of a sporting event that would be comparable to, say, I don't know, the USA, the UK, or France, Germany. If all of those countries decided not to attend the games. I don't see how one wouldn't view that as a strong message.
It's a strong message, but then what happens? We just don't go. What's the result of that? And there's also, there was a gay athlete, God, what's his name? He's the only gay American soccer player, Robbie Rogers, or something like that.
Yeah, is it Robbie Rhodes or something?
Robbie, your name's Robbie, hi Robbie.
Doesn't have a surname
He
anymore.
was an Olympic athlete a couple of Summer Olympics ago for the USA soccer team, and he wrote a piece that was published widely that said that we shouldn't be taking away these sporting opportunities from the athletes who have trained for this event that sometimes, for a lot of them, will only come around once in a lifetime. And he, as an LGBT person and activist, thinks that we can do more good by being there rather than not being there at all, and also taking away this opportunity for so many of the athletes who would have otherwise been able to take part in the games. And there's also, there was always talk of us boycotting China, but I don't think anybody genuinely thought that was going to happen, right? I don't remember there being as much of a hoo-ha about China's human rights abuses. And so I think there might be a certain amount of post-Cold War mentality going on here. Do you think that might be
that definitely plays a part in the well, in the series of events, are, the West's relationship to China, or the way we perceive China, is very different from the way we perceive Russia. Obvious point, but Russia.
It's okay. You made the point very well.
Thank you, you patronising bastard. Russia's a far more. Human rights makes more sense in the Russian context than it does in the Chinese context. In the first podcast we did, you talked about how human rights weren't really even a consideration in China. So, and obviously,
I think you might be twisting my words a little bit there.
Well, they don't have the same relationships to human rights as we do. They don't. Well, for instance, we were talking about the vote, and the idea that a Chinese person would want to vote is not. I mean, is not necessarily the case in the way that Westerners demand a vote. So the assumptions they have about gay rights are probably different as well. And I guess the Chinese thing was more a general human rights concern rather than a specified LGBT human rights concern. So the situation is pretty different compared.
How do you think that things would be made better with a boycott? Apart from a message.
I mean, what you're suggesting, in a sense, is a message as well. It's just that you're talking more about a series of events and a kind of engagement for the duration of the games, whereas a boycott would obviously be a single message.
So I also feel conflicted about whether or not I always feel conflicted, but when I see Western activists go and fight on behalf of other people's rights. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it's a weird kind of "we're coming to save you" kind of mentality, whereas the Russian LGBT community can actually do very well at having its own movement. Thank you very much. I always feel a little bit conflicted about that.
I mean, you say I'm not, which is kind of an argument against me, but I'm not terribly au fait with the state of LGBT activism in Russia. But it seems to me, I mean, the news reports
protest.
I've heard,
they have healthy protests.
They protest and then they get arrested
Yes.
and sent to jail.
Yes.
Which, I mean, obviously victories have transpired from events like that in other civil rights movements, but I suppose that they need support one way or the other from the international community, wouldn't you say?
I don't know. I don't think that a boycott is the best way of showing support, though.
But I mean,
That's the issue
isn't a boycott more in line with your argument, though, that you're not too comfortable with the idea of Westerners going across to another country on a kind of secular missionary kind of thing?
That's an interesting interpretation of the event, but I still think that a boycott brings about the kind of implications of I think it just brings back the Cold War mentalities that we're meant to be moving past. I think that it's a shame that it's a card on the table rather than dialogue. I think that a boycott is the laziest way to deal with these kinds of issues. I think that active activism and engaging with the event is a better way of getting results.
All right,
and showing support.
I'm interested in how that matches up with your previous comment about not getting involved.
I didn't say that I didn't think that we should get involved. I said I was conflicted about it.
Right, okay. But not so conflicted that you can't argue for one side. Okay. So long as the viewers understand that.
Yeah. Okay.
But what do you think the long-term effect will be if, I say we, I'm not going. If the teams go over,
that's a shame. Are you not doing the speed skating?
No, surprisingly not. But what do you think will be the effect if the teams go over and engage and sort of support either directly or indirectly? Isn't there a problem with the whole allegedly apolitical nature of the Olympic Games? Doesn't that kind of conflict with what you want them to do?
The Olympics has never been apolitical.
Well, I know that, but it's supposed to be. So how does that tally?
I think that I think that we're both going against the idea of the Olympic Games being non-political by suggesting both of these paths, to be completely honest.
That's true, yeah, that's true.
I think we want these games to be political, whether we like it or not, regardless of which side of the coin we fall on in terms of a boycott. We both think that these human, like the stuff that is happening to the LGBT community in Russia, is bad and that it shouldn't be happening. It's difficult to come to a conclusion as to what would be the best route in order to show solidarity and in order for there to be, I don't know, to be completely honest, I don't know what we'd be looking for either, because Russia is not going to change its law.
So
I think that
are we saying that it doesn't actually matter? Is that what we're saying?
I think that what should have happened is that, well, Russia probably shouldn't have been awarded the games.
Oh, isn't that sort of a kind of boycott anyway, though?
No, it's not. They're not winning the games. That's completely different.
Yeah, but you're saying they don't win the games because they're homophobic. That's pretty similar to saying we don't go to the games because they're homophobic. Do you not think?
No.
No?
No, because so the IOC is meant to be the International Olympic Committee. Is meant to. There's ideals that are supposed to promote sport, regardless of disability, of gender, or of sexuality or of race.
Right. This is the apolitical International Olympic Committee.
Well, no, that's a pretty standard thing to stand by, right?
That's
Everybody should be allowed to take part in sporting events.
That's a political position. There's no way around that. That is, that's a standard, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think that that's a particularly radical standard. Yes, it might be in certain
I'm not
parts
saying
of
I disagree with it. I'm just saying it is a point of view.
Well, that is something that the Olympic Committee is meant to stand by.
Okay.
And by allowing the games to go on. Oh God, I'm going on to your side of the argument now. Oh bollocks!
Do you want me to switch sides so that we can just keep going?
No. Okay. I think we may have talked this out, to be completely honest. When you end up arguing yourself into a corner.
I've managed to win an argument whose position I don't even agree with.
I think that we should let the guys in the comments decide. Go downstairs and let us know who you think has won this debate.
And also comment on the declining quality of the preparation for the right dishonourable.
We're very sorry about this. It will get better.
We used to drink bottle gins and the whole world had a sing. Meet the trees and on such bar. We used to dance, we'll take a chance. I lost my mind to young romance. Yeah, I don't mind, I got it back. Half the time I'm waiting for a second chance. Half the time I'm glad I feel alright.
Make do and mend, eh?
Is that your version of a Mancunian accent?
No, that was just me being an idiot. I'm offended that you think that was in a Mancunian accent. Hiya! That's my Mancunian accent.